Welcome to Happiness Hunch.
Hello everyone!
Today we're going to finish up our series on wellness in the body before going on to emotional and mental health. So we want to talk about hormones and the endocrine system.
Yes.
Endocrine system.
Another big player in our wellness.
Yes. And the key principle here is balanced hormones, which in our research we've discovered is very complicated and very difficult.
Yeah.
But what is very consistent is that when people's hormonal systems are not working well, people do not feel well. And there's lots of ways that people don't feel well. So let me name some of those. People can be depressed when their hormones are out of balance. People can feel lethargic and kind of lazy when their hormones are out of balance. People can feel anxious,
unmotivated,
and worried when their hormones are out of balance. People can also feel, tired. Yeah. Lethargy is different. Some people can just feel physically tired all the time. And that would be a little bit different, I think, than lethargy or feeling kind of lazy, which is more just unmotivated, which I think you just said a second ago. So one of the things that we've discovered is that a lot of times people can correct a lot of those problems, we certainly have, by eating and taking proper care of our body and trying to get our hormones in balance. So for me, for example, my adrenal system was very damaged by the sugar consumption of my youth. Okay? And that, of course, had some interesting effects in my brain. So it would give me things like brain fog, and I've experienced a lot of lethargy, a lot of depression at times, and also, strangely, at times when my sugar was excessively low, I'd feel sort of paranoid. Okay? Now, what underlies that, the desire to binge on the sugar, and this is where the food-hormone connection is that what can happen, or what was happening with me, is that some of those feel-good hormones that your brain produces. Endorphins, what else?
Serotonin. Some of them are calming, some of them are just pleasure.
Yeah. So my body's underperforming in those ways. And so I'm going to try to prop that up with some sort of stimulus. Or people who are overly anxious might use some sort of sedative or something that kind of calms them down. Okay. Instead of, which the more we do that and establish ourselves in kind of addictive patterns of behavior, right, we throw our hormones out of balance and we stress those, our glands and our different, our glands. That's really what produces hormones, right? So talk a little bit maybe about your experience, some of the things you experienced, like your thyroid issues.
Yeah,
and stuff like that.
I definitely had thyroid issues, and when you look at a list of symptoms for thyroid, under active thyroid, I definitely had most of them on that list. Cold hands and feet, and really all of them. I won't list them here. But yeah, definitely thyroid, and it really affected my menstrual cycle. So I think for females, we are particularly hormone wired, and our balance is a little more sensitive, I think, than for men. Although they definitely have balance issues too, for sure. But it's very sensitive with women.
Complicated.
You could experience infertility. You could have really strange things going on with your cycle, really long cycles, and I don't want to get into all the fuzzy details around that, but that's definitely an area that I experienced too. So I would say thyroid, my menstrual cycle, those are two big areas, and weight gain. As I've said in other videos, my 40s, 45 to 50, was like the scariest years because I had always been able, we've eaten pretty healthy ever since we had Isaac, and or ever since he was right around, I guess he was turned 5 or 4, right around then. And so I felt pretty good, really, all those years, and was able to, have 4 children, even though I got a late start, and felt good. But then, boy, starting at right around 45, I started really noticing my weight coming on and me not being able to do anything about it. You know, trying different things within my diet, like trying paleo, a paleo style of eating within, you know, this healthier Weston A. Price style of eating. I still was not able to deal with weight. So
yeah,
those are the two.
So you named a couple of other things. So obviously hormones are very related to sexuality. So libido can be affected by this. But also you mentioned weight. So weight can be affected by hormone imbalance and also hair growth. Either the loss of hair or excessive growth of hair can be affected by hormones.
Androgens,
our hormones are a very delicate system in the body and need to be balanced. And so, but it because it's complicated, okay, sometimes the attempt, and this has been our experience, trying to manage hormones can be frustrating because there's so many little pieces and so many interrelated systems within our hormones. We have different hormones and different glands that are all, you know, working together. So this is, or not working together, as the case often is. So our breakthrough is the ketogenic diet and the discovery of what I would call sort of the primacy of insulin resistance in all of this. I want you to talk about that a little bit. Because that seems to be presenting itself, at least to what we're reading, as kind of the kingpin, right? And if you knock out the problem with insulin resistance and get your insulin balanced, it really helps the body get everything else kind of sorted out. Is that true, or am I not getting that right?
Much of health, improving your health, revolves around managing insulin. And in our medical world today, the thing that they're really looking at is glucose. Well, by the time glucose becomes a problem, insulin has been a problem for a long time. So this is where the ketogenic way of eating is just super helpful, because the focus is managing carbohydrates. And when you manage carbohydrates, you're managing your insulin. So because the more carbohydrates you eat, out of your range, you know, we have a healthy range for carbohydrates. And if we live up above that, you know, for years and years and years, which I did, even though they were healthy carbohydrates, they were still above my personal threshold, what I could handle, you know, got me into the place of having hormonal issues and feeling depressed. I definitely had that. 45 to 50 was not a good time period for me. And with a number of things going on. And yes, insulin resistance is key. Most of the metabolic syndromes are improved by managing insulin. And that's what a lot of people are finding. All kinds of symptoms go away. And balancing hormones, because it is such a sensitive, tricky business, if you can do that by just managing carbohydrates, by managing your insulin, why not do that instead of getting on synthetic hormones? That's a kind of a scary world. So yeah, it's a huge deal. Huge.
Yeah. So that's. I just want to follow up on one thing that you just said. So when you start using drug therapies, right, you're starting to intervene in a system which is already complex, and not that it can't help. I don't want to say that, but the best way to approach it is, again, going back to a couple of videos ago. We say first start with really nutrient-dense food.
Right.
Then you add in natural supplements. Then you might need some synthetic supplements, and then you might need drugs, you know, to try to get yourself into homeostasis. But you don't want to become reliant on those drugs, but rather on finding nutritional ways of helping support your systems. Because again, your body knows what to do if you give it the right inputs, and you take out things that are wreaking havoc on your system. Now, the other hormone I want to talk about, which I think is huge, besides
cortisol.
Yeah, is cortisol. Besides insulin, is
Adrenaline,
cortisol. So we live in a very stressful culture, very high pace of life, a very contentious society. You know, everybody's, you know, our environments are stressful and contentious, like whether you're on the internet or whether you're at work or
and just
whether
the pure busyness,
Yeah.
like having to be here at this time and then here at this time and then here at this time. I mean, it's like nonstop. That is so stressful.
so
Rat race.
right, and that's so you're not going to necessarily eliminate
No.
cortisol levels by eating well. The key to reducing your cortisol levels is change of lifestyle and behavior. However, we can't always do that. That's what I've found. It's like we're not always able to completely engineer and orchestrate the environments we live in. And when we talk about mental and emotional health and then spiritual well-being and moral well-being, we'll talk into this issue more, because there are things that we have to do on those levels of our existence for sure to lower our cortisol levels, because stress, anxiety, worry, things like that wreak havoc.
I mean, diet can be stressful
Yeah.
too. It's one component, but there are a lot of others.
Right. So it's kind of like tunneling from both sides. You want to support your natural systems with good food, and then, as we'll see, we have to shape our life in such a way that we are not instigating in ourselves occasions for high levels of stress. Because what we typically do when we're stressed is we binge on something. And then when we binge on something, we
pull the rug out from underneath ourselves.
We oversaturate our system
Yeah.
with feel-good hormones. So if we form, let's say we get addicted to food, we're constantly spiking our insulin, which is throwing things out of balance. Or let's say we turn to pornography, we're constantly triggering large doses of dopamine in our brain, which is throwing our hormones off, right? And we become attached, physiologically attached to having high levels of that. Or if we're feeling a lot of lethargy all the time because of a low, thyroid, we're cranking on the coffee. Or maybe we're smoking cigarettes, or we're juuling, or doing something like that. There's a direct connection here. That's what we're trying to say. So I think in terms of balancing hormones, it's a little bit more complicated, and it's a good segue into the next little series of videos we want to do on emotional and mental health. It's very, very tied up in our hormone system, but also patterns of behavior. And they're synergistic because they work from both directions, right? Our behavior can set up bad eating patterns and bad behavior patterns, and bad behavior
It's like
patterns.
what comes first.
Yeah, it's kind of a chicken and egg, and it just depends on the person.
So
Sometimes
breaking the cycle in one area can really help.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. So again, as a first principle, we want to start with building a strong foundation, which is our body, and making sure that we're supporting our endocrine system and doing all that we can to not overstimulate it.
Right.
And also to make sure that we are allowing those systems to find their own balance and and find homeostasis. That's going to solve a lot of problems for people right there.
And you know what? It actually tastes good. I just want to throw that in there because I feel like people think that, I could never do that. And
what's the
keto, improved
really
diet.
fast.
Yeah. Well, improving diet,
Yeah.
like it would be so scary and it would be so hard. I just want to assure you, it's way scarier to feel your health draining from you. Way scarier.
Yeah.
And this food tastes really good.
Yeah.
I mean, we are, in fact, we were joking last night. Last night I made shrimp Alfredo on top of broccoli with caramelized mushrooms on top. And I said to Mike, this is a real sacrifice. This diet, it's just, it's beating me up.
I know.
Yeah. And so I just want to say it tastes good. This is not the low-fat cardboard diet.
Yeah.
This is a diet that is very tasty. God made nutritious food to taste really good. And when you get over the hump of the 3 big guys we talked about in the last video, there is a lot of great flavor and joy on the other side. And you just feel better in your body, you feel better in your mind, you feel better in your spirit, you just feel free. So, anyway, I just wanted to...
No, it's important, and let me just sort of build on that, pleasure is a tricky thing.
Yeah.
And in God's great design, pleasure attaches itself to something that is intended to fulfill us and perfect us. What we are good at doing in the modern world is extracting pleasure from the thing that fulfills us.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what we do with artificial flavors and fake fats and different things like that. It gives it satisfies the palate, but it doesn't fulfill the body, and so it brings a craving on. Because it doesn't.
Because we need nutrition.
Right. So
we're going to crave and crave and crave if our body isn't fed nutrient-dense food.
So God puts pleasure on. So that's why, like, what we ate last night tasted really amazing, because it had flavor combined with fat, combined with nutrition. Yeah. Those three things came together, and when you eat, you're full, and you're like, that was really satisfying. Yeah. And I don't feel like going into the fridge 10 minutes later, 15 minutes later to get something else.
Right.
So that's what's so great about eating this way, is that it's enjoyable and pleasurable, and it satisfies the needs of our body and brings us to satiation or fulfillment.
Perfect.
In our body.
Yeah.
So, all right. So that's our last happiness hunch on bodily wellness in this series.
Yes.
I'm sure we'll talk about it again. But we're going to go on and talk about emotional and mental health next time. So join us. If you like this video, please like us below. Go ahead and subscribe and share it with others. And we'll leave some show notes below for you to dig into this more.
All right. Take care.
See ya.
Bye.